There comes a moment, often quiet and subtle, when the old stories start to crumble. Not because someone proves them wrong, but because something deeper in us wakes up. A recognition dawns. Maybe it's during a late-night walk, when everything feels too coincidental to be random. Maybe it's after a heartbreak, when you start to wonder if life is nudging you toward something you refuse to see. In that instant, the illusion of separation flickers and bends. You begin to ask, what if I'm not just experiencing reality? What if I'm creating it? This isn't a New Age idea or an esoteric fantasy. It's a remembering. For generations, we've been taught that we are isolated points in space, tiny observers in a grand, indifferent universe, that thoughts are private, actions are linear, and the world out there is detached from our inner world. But what if the reverse is true? What if what we think is out there is simply a mirror of what's in here? Quantum philosophy suggests something radical, that the observer is not separate from the observed, that particles behave differently depending on whether they're being watched, that the field of reality doesn't settle until consciousness lays eyes on it. But you don't need a laboratory to understand this. You've lived it every time your mood changed the energy in a room, every time your gut told you something before your mind could catch up, every time your fear attracted the very thing you were hoping to avoid. We often think manifestation is about attracting something into our lives, but this assumes what we desire is outside of us. What if nothing is outside of you? What if everything already exists in the field of possibility, and you're simply tuning into the frequency of what you allow yourself to receive? You don't manifest what you want, you manifest what you are, what you believe, what you consistently signal to the field through your emotions, your expectations, your silent agreements with reality. This is not punishment. It's precision. The universe is not ignoring you. It's responding with stunning accuracy to the identity you're inhabiting. This is why changing your thoughts alone is never enough. If underneath those thoughts is a vibration of lack, guilt, or unworthiness, then the field listens to that. You can affirm abundance all day, but if your core is still bracing for rejection, you'll keep receiving echoes of that deeper signal. And so we must begin, not by chasing more, but by dismantling the idea that we're disconnected, that we're small, that we must earn, perform, prove. All of that noise distorts the signal. Beneath it is something quieter, infinitely more powerful, a remembering that you are not separate from the life you long for. You're simply learning to embody the version of yourself who's already living it. So here's the first question. Where in your life are you still chasing something you don't believe you deserve? Where are you operating like a beggar at the door of your own home, instead of stepping into the truth that the door was never locked? This moment, this awareness, is not about guilt or blame. It's an invitation to shed the identity of separation, to return to the frequency of coherence, to stop negotiating with your doubts and begin negotiating with your destiny. Because the truth is, the universe isn't just listening, it's singing with you. And it's time to stop whispering small psalms when you were born to orchestrate symphonies. If you've ever felt that life was responding to you in uncanny ways, a stranger calling just as you think of them, an opportunity appearing the moment you let go of striving, then you've brushed against the edge of something ancient and deeply true. You've touched the architecture of the field. This invisible field, call it the quantum field, call it divine intelligence, call it pure potential. It doesn't matter what name you give it. What matters is knowing it exists, and more importantly, that you are not separate from it. Every thought, emotion, and belief you hold vibrates into this field like a signal. And like a tuning fork, the field resonates with you and sends back reality in kind. Science gives us hints. Quantum theory suggests that everything in the universe exists as a wave of probability until observed, until consciousness collapses possibility into actuality. Your thoughts, then, are not idle. They're acts of creation. Your expectations are not private. They are instructions to the fabric of existence. The space between me and that thing I want is not distance. It is coherence. And coherence is not achieved through force, but through alignment. Think of it this way. Reality is less like a machine and more like a song. If you are out of tune with your own desires, you cannot hear the music that's already playing. You might try to scream over it, push your way into it, manipulate it. But the field doesn't respond to noise. It responds to resonance. You've probably experienced this before when you were in the zone. Everything felt effortless, doors opened, people showed up, and timing seemed almost magical. That was you aligning, not chasing. That was you in coherence with your quantum blueprint. But we lose this connection easily. Why? Because most of us are conditioned not to trust our inner guidance. We've been taught to overanalyze, to outsource our intuition, to make fear-based choices that keep us safe while quietly suffocating our potential. We walk around carrying emotional frequencies that don't match our dreams, grief wrapped in smiles, shame hidden beneath achievement, fear dressed as control. And yet the field doesn't judge, it simply reflects. What if you began to see your life, exactly as it is, as a readout of your most dominant frequency? Not as punishment, not as failure, just data. Beautiful, raw feedback from the most intelligent system imaginable. What would change if you stopped blaming circumstances and started listening to the message encoded in them? For example, say you're constantly surrounded by people who don't respect your boundaries. You can try to fix them, complain about them, cut them off. But that won't change the pattern, because the field is not echoing their behavior, it's mirroring your signal. Perhaps a frequency of, I must earn love, or I don't have the right to say no. Once you shift that, the external reality must recalibrate. It has no choice. The field is neutral. It isn't invested in your struggle. It simply matches what you offer. This is why healing matters. Not for performance, not for perfection, but because your wounds distort your frequency. If you're carrying the energetic residue of past betrayal, abandonment, or unworthiness, then no matter how vividly you visualize your future, you're still subconsciously broadcasting the past. And reality will keep looping until you interrupt it. Not with logic, but with presence. With love. With the radical decision to become a different vibration. So ask yourself now, gently and honestly, what story am I still vibrating at a cellular level, even though I've outgrown it? That question alone can begin to shift the field. Because once you stop arguing with your reflection and start changing the expression, you unlock a sacred truth. You were never meant to chase reality. You were meant to command it by becoming coherent with your true self. And from that space, your entire life begins to reassemble. Not from effort, but from essence. There's a reason why the affirmations didn't work, why the vision boards gathered dust, why the perfectly scripted manifestations didn't land. It's not because you're broken. It's not because you weren't worthy. It's because the foundation underneath, the belief system you were standing on, was still whispering the opposite. The field doesn't speak English. It doesn't respond to what you say you want. It responds to who you are when you say it. This is where belief becomes the silent architect of reality. Most of us think we live by our conscious intentions, but in truth, we live by our unconscious identity, what you truly believe about yourself, what you believe you're allowed to receive, what you believe is safe to feel, what you believe others expect of you, will dictate what shows up in your life. Beliefs are like emotional gravity, invisible yet binding. If you believe you're never quite enough, the field organizes itself to confirm that belief. If you believe you have to struggle to succeed, then struggle becomes the gatekeeper of every gain. If you believe love always ends in pain, you'll unconsciously sabotage or select relationships that validate that pain. And here's the twist. These beliefs didn't start with you. Most were inherited, absorbed during childhood, encoded from culture, reinforced by trauma. They're like background programs running the entire operating system of your life. You don't see them, but you live inside their logic. But just because a belief is old doesn't make it true. So the question becomes, what version of yourself have you been loyal to, even though it no longer fits? Who are you still protecting by staying small, staying silent, staying safe? When you begin to dismantle an identity that no longer serves you, grief often arises, and that's okay. You're not just letting go of thoughts, you're letting go of the comfort of familiarity. Even suffering can feel familiar. Even dysfunction can feel like home. But growth requires disloyalty to your limitations. That's the turning point. The moment you choose to believe something new, not just with your mind, but with your nervous system. Not just by saying, I am abundant, but by actually allowing your body to feel safe with abundance. Not just saying, I am worthy of love, but letting love in without armor, without performance. This is where inner work becomes quantum work. Because when you shift your identity, when you stop identifying as someone who has to try, and instead as someone who already is, you don't just feel better, you shift the entire electromagnetic signature you emit. The field listens to that. Think about it. How often do we say, I'll feel confident when I succeed, or I'll be at peace once I have clarity? But the quantum field doesn't work that way. It's not cause and effect, it's mirror and match. You feel peace first, and then clarity arrives. You embody confidence first, and then success becomes inevitable. One powerful example comes from people who've healed lifelong conditions by changing not just their diet or routine, but their identity. They stopped identifying as a sick person trying to get well, and started embodying a well person whose body was simply catching up. And their cells responded, the field responded, because belief isn't just an idea, it's biology, it's vibration. This is why emotional honesty is sacred. If you're angry, don't fake gratitude. If you're afraid, don't slap a positive quote on top. That's not frequency elevation, it's frequency confusion. The field can only respond to clarity. So get honest, not to wallow, but to witness. Because once witnessed without shame, even the most limiting belief begins to lose its charge. So here's the next reflection. Where have you been faking a frequency in hopes the field won't notice? What belief, if you dropped it today, would set you free? It's not about perfection. It's about alignment. And alignment isn't achieved by force. It's achieved by remembering the truth of who you are beneath the noise. And the truth is, you were never meant to fix your life. You were meant to feel it, align with it, and let it unfold from the inside out. The shift doesn't begin when you manifest the house, the partner, the job. It begins the moment you tune your internal frequency to match the version of you who already has it. It begins when you stop performing for the future and start living from your wholeness now. Tuning into the field is not about trying harder, it's about softening deeper. It's about coherence. When your thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations line up in harmony, you become like a well-tuned instrument. And the quantum field, it plays back what you broadcast. Coherence isn't mystical, it's mechanical. The heart, for instance, generates an electromagnetic field 5,000 times more powerful than the brain. And when your heart is in a state of gratitude, love, or peace, it sends out a clean, consistent signal. This is why heart-brain coherence is such a powerful practice. When you feel what you want before it physically arrives, you stop waiting for permission from the external world. You become the signal. You've probably already felt what incoherence is like. Moments when your head says, I deserve this, but your gut tightens in fear. When you speak affirmations, but your chest feels constricted. That's split energy, and the field doesn't know which signal to match. The result? Delay, static, repetition of the old pattern. But imagine this, waking up and choosing to feel joy, not because of what's outside, but because you're in love with being alive. Imagine walking into a room and not shrinking to fit it, but expanding your presence with ease. Imagine saying, "I love you," not to be loved back, but because it's your nature to love. That is energetic congruence. That is when the field shifts because you shifted. Let's go deeper. Tuning into the field also means tuning out the noise, the outdated patterns, the generational trauma, the expectations that aren't yours. It requires stillness, not emptiness, but a full-bodied listening. What do you hear when the mind stops narrating your worth? What arises when you sit with yourself not as a problem to solve, but as a frequency to feel? This isn't just poetic, it's practical. Coherence creates clarity. When you're coherent, decisions become easier. Relationships align or fall away. The right opportunities show up not because you chased them, but because you became magnetic to them. The same way a radio doesn't find a station by force, it simply tunes to the correct frequency. So if your life feels chaotic, ask, what frequency am I tuned to right now? Is it survival, doubt, comparison? You don't need to judge it, just witness it. Because awareness is the first vibration of change, then shift. Not by faking positivity, but by choosing one coherent emotion in your body and breathing it into the field. Gratitude is a powerful one, not as a mental exercise, but as a felt experience. Gratitude for your breath, for your capacity to feel, for the future you haven't lived yet but are already aligned with. Let your body feel it. Let your nervous system taste the future in the now. Because in the quantum field, now is the only time there is. Practice is the bridge. The more often you tune your energy, the less likely you are to spiral back into the old signal. Daily coherence practices, like heart-focused breathing, embodied affirmations, visualization from the end state, are not rituals of superstition. They are recalibrations. And every recalibration sends new instructions into the field. Here's something to try. The next time you notice yourself chasing something, approval, success, answers, pause and ask, what version of me is doing the chasing? Then breathe. Drop into your body. Speak gently to the part of you that thinks it has to fight for what already belongs to you. And then from that still space, ask, what would I feel like if it were already done? Live from that place. Because when you broadcast from your future self, you collapse time. You align the map with the terrain. You stop reacting to what is and start creating what can be by becoming it now. There comes a moment when you no longer wish to tweak your life. You want to transform it. And that moment arrives not when you've had enough struggle, but when you finally remember who you are underneath it. Manifestation, in its truest form, is not about calling something in. It's about releasing everything that isn't aligned with the version of you who already has it. You are not here to recycle old patterns. You are here to live from the quantum blueprint, the version of yourself that has always existed in potential. Not a fantasy, not a wishful ideal, but a frequency that's already encoded in the field, waiting for you to embody it. But here's the paradox. Most of us try to access the future while still clinging to the survival codes of the past. We ask for expansion, but stay loyal to identities rooted in fear. We dream of becoming, but act from remembering. And so, the field gets mixed signals. Every time you say, I want something new, but think, feel, and behave like the version of you from 2 years ago, the blueprint remains inactive. The field isn't rejecting you. It's honoring the vibration you've chosen. So if you want the blueprint to activate, you must stop sourcing your sense of self from outdated evidence. This means no longer consulting your past to predict your future. It means no longer checking your current reality for proof that your dreams are possible. Reality is not your ruler, it's your reflection. If you wait for circumstances to change before you allow yourself to feel empowered, you'll wait forever. The blueprint doesn't turn on when things get better. It turns on when you do. So ask yourself, am I building my future from memory or from imagination? Because memory is predictable. It recycles. But imagination? That's where quantum codes live. Not in logic, not in history, but in the soft, surreal space where anything is possible and nothing is fixed. Here's the radical shift. Don't just visualize the future, visit it emotionally. What does it feel like to wake up in love with your life? To trust your intuition without doubting it? To receive with ease instead of earning through exhaustion? Feel that. Then act from that place. Not because you need proof, but because you're done betraying the truth that already lives inside you. And yes, the old self will resist. It will whisper, "This isn't safe. We've never done this before." Let it speak, but don't let it drive. Every time you override the old programming with presence, with choice, with courage, you weaken the neural pathways of limitation and strengthen the circuitry of the new self. This is not just psychology. It's frequency work. Real transformation isn't loud. It happens in tiny moments of choosing again, of pausing before the old reaction and breathing into a new one, of noticing when you're slipping into performance and choosing presence instead. These moments don't look dramatic from the outside, but they are quantum. Because in those moments, you're no longer living from the blueprint of your past. You're living as the blueprint of your future. And the field cannot help but rearrange to meet you there. What happens when you commit to that new frequency? Not once, but daily. Miracles begin to feel normal. Synchronicity becomes your rhythm. You stop asking if you can manifest and start asking how much joy you can hold. So here is your final reflection. What version of you is already living the life you crave? And what if today, right now, you stopped auditioning for it and started acting from it? The invitation has always been there. The quantum field does not reward those who wait. It meets those who remember. And the moment you stop rehearsing your past and start rehearsing your power, the future rushes to greet you, not as a surprise, but as a homecoming. You were never waiting for life to begin. Life has been waiting for you, to align, to activate, to arrive. If you've made it this far, then something in you is ready. Ready to stop seeking proof and start embodying truth. You are not separate from the miracles you seek. You are the signal that invites them. The quantum blueprint of your life isn't hidden. It's humming beneath the noise of your old identity, waiting for your permission to be felt, trusted, lived. This isn't about becoming someone new. It's about returning to who you really are, before fear told you otherwise. The universe, the field, God, whatever name resonates, has never withheld your dream. It's simply been waiting for your vibration to catch up to your vision. So let this be your moment, the one where you stop repeating and start remembering, where you replace the question, "Is it possible?" with the conviction, "I am the possibility." And if this resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Share what part awakened something inside you. And if you feel called, subscribe or follow for more explorations like this. Because your next chapter isn't written in time. It's written in frequency. And the pen is already in your hand. You're not just manifesting the life, you're remembering the truth.